Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and with Dark Knight being one of the jobs I have the deepest history with, I think it's only fair to start my job roundup series for Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail with Dark Knight. I've gotten leveled now, and honestly, I've been enjoying it. I think the job is solidly fun, but I think it's going to end up being the tank I have the most issues with. And let's get into those, because from the sounds of it, they want to do quite extensive job changes when it comes to 8.0, and for me, when it comes to job design, I care more about how fun it is to actually play a job than necessarily if Dark Knight is numerically better than the other jobs in its role. Yeah, I care about if the job is actually fun, if the buttons I'm pressing matter and are interesting and are enjoyable to press. And like, that will vary from person to person, but I think there's a few design choices when it comes to Dark Knight specifically that leave me a bit more confused than anything, especially in comparison to the other tanks. I think the job overall is fun because, well, let's be fair here, the way that all the tanks kind of do DPS is very similar, like on the whole. There's some minor differences here and there, but overall, your rotations, well, you'll definitely get a feeling of familiarity if you play all of them. Dark Knight can be surprisingly spammy at times, and with Dawntrail's decision to kind of condense Delirium and Blood Weapon into one cooldown, into one singular GCD with Delirium, while in conjunction changing just those 3 GCDs you would cast into their own unique animations, I think it does help the job visually in terms of being cool and feeling good. I think stuff when it comes to, are the animations I'm hitting feeling repetitive, or are they cool and special? And I think Dark Knight, with these changes, moves away from being repetitive and into the realm of feeling special. There's a couple crippling flaws that I have when it comes to Dark Knight though. One of them being the Blackest Night. Blackest Night being kind of your main cooldown. It basically gives you this giant shield, and if you're able to pop the shield within a specified time period, well then you get a free application of Dark Arts. But if you don't manage to pop the shield, well then, you're screwed. Yeah, it's like the only tank to my knowledge where playing this mechanic correctly, because a lot of the other tanks, actually all of them, have a mechanic very similar now to Blackest Night. You have things like Bloodwetting on Warrior, or Pot of Conundrum, or Corundum, whatever the hell it's called, for Gunbreaker, etc. Like this short cooldown kind of defensive thing that gives you a variety of options in terms of how to actually applying defense and mitigation to you. When it comes to Dark Knight, it's really the only one, though, that can feel bad. And I think this is one of the most interesting topics when it comes to tanking on the whole, because I find Blackest Night to be fun, but the problem is that it's not alone. When it was first introduced in Shadowbringers, I liked the ability, because I liked planning and doing the math in my head. Okay, is it worth it to press Blackest Night here? Can I pop it and get that free use of Dark Arts? Or am I just gonna feel stupid having this bubble around me and losing out on DPS because of it? And I would be lying if I said that I still didn't enjoy doing that in my head when it comes to Dark Knight, but it's a level of friction that just does not exist on the other tanks that I've played so far, or just in history. Like, it's the only tank where I'm like, okay, I can press this button and pretty much do less DPS because of it. Which sounds counterintuitive because you would be pressing the Blackest Night, right, to mitigate damage. So theoretically, if you didn't take more damage, that should be a good thing, but when it comes to Dark Knight, it's not, because you don't want to take too much damage, but you want to take just enough to pop the shield, so you're not losing out on DPS. And you can argue that maybe it's a bit of skill expression to try and, you know, like, maintain that perfect balance of mitigation, but when you know you can pop the Blackest Night in the safest conditions you can, I would then counter saying, okay, but is it worth it though? Is it worth it to have a mechanic where the best possible outcome is that it performs the same with a lot more if statements afterwards than just pressing my OGCD MP spender? In its best condition, I mitigate a bit of damage and my DPS isn't compromised. Whereas on the other tanks, I mitigate damage and my DPS isn't compromised. And there's just no follow-up, or I might even gain additional bonuses like on Warrior, where I just gain the ability to solo the game when it comes to the HP generation of Bloodwetting. Like, that is a really cool ability that feels good to press, you know? It feels good, because it's a visceral effect. You hear it, you see it, you feel it, and it feels good all the time, especially in dungeons. Blackest Night, not really. So it's one of those interesting situations where, like, there's an element to that I genuinely like, right? Like, I like the management aspect, and doing that arithmetic in my head. Okay, is it worth it to pop it here? Because when I tank, I like being able to plan ahead a little bit in terms of my mitigation and being smart and getting better at a fight like that. Even if the fight is easy, like just an expert dungeon or whatever. Generally, though, I tend to find just wait till I get the tank buster icon, then pop it, and then GG, well played. So I'm in this weird predicament where I'm like, I don't know if I want this removed full stop, because it's management that I think is unique to Dark Knight that I also really enjoy. But at the same time, it's like something needs to be done when it comes to Blackest Night, so it doesn't just feel like a scuffed version of what the other tanks get. Even if the mitigation is really good, let's be fair here, this game is based around damage. I've seen some other comments on previous videos I've made about tanking, like the one I made a couple days ago, where someone suggested that if the shield's not popped, maybe it refunds your MP, and like maybe that could be a good band-aid, but I feel as if something needs to be done, or an additional effect needs to take place when it comes to Blackest Night, just to make it feel like a good button to press. Because it kind of just feels like that one TikTok sound that goes, "Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it!" Where if I don't proc it, it just feels bad to have. Like, again, there is some skill expression there, but on the whole, I don't think that skill expression is fun enough to warrant its current state. Okay, now having said that, this will sound a little bit counterintuitive. The survivability on Dark Knight is fine, right? Like, it's fine. You can do the content. Does it feel good? Again, not really. If I have a healer that I'm not even sure is quite up to par, on the other tanks, I feel like, okay, I can kind of work around this. On Dark Knight, it feels like I'm really spiky and reliant on the Blackest Night, funnily enough. Again, you can make it work. You just feel a bit squishy on Dark Knight, at least I do. And this kind of goes into my bigger critique when it comes to Dark Knight, even more so than Blackest Night. I don't know what the hell they're doing with Abyssal Drain. Why is this thing, like, tied to Carve and Spit? Why is it the AoE version of Carve and Spit, but Carve and Spit generates MP while Abyssal Drain generates HP? It just feels like an ability they have absolutely no idea how they want to perfectly balance, so they just said, okay, screw it, let's make it the AoE version of Carve and Spit. Because when you hit Abyssal Drain, especially in dungeons where you have a lot of mobs, it feels good, right? Especially when you have a lot of mobs. However, veteran Dark Knights watching this, you remember Stormblood. Remember when you could spam this thing in dungeons? It was comedy, right? Was it brain dead? Absolutely. Was it healthy for the game? Probably not. Did I love it though? Just getting a giant death ball of mobs, like wall-to-wall pulling, and just spamming out Abyssal Drain, and heck, maybe even using Dark Arts Abyssal Drain for the lulz back then? Was it degen? Possibly, but was it really cool? Yes. Should Abyssal Drain return to that format? Probably not. If it does, though, you're not going to hear me complain. However, I think something needs to be done when it comes to Abyssal Drain. You use it way too infrequently. It's an ability that you should use, maybe not spamming as you did before in, like, Stormblood, but I think a lot of the issues I have when it comes to Dark Knight would be remedied if Abyssal Drain was just way more frequent. You would gain way more just health regen, which would make wall-to-wall pulling in dungeons less nail-biting, if that makes sense. I'm like, oh my god, please let my healer be, like, from a world-first team, please. Because, like, also, let's be fair here, I'm not the best player in the entire world, so when the healer also doesn't know what the hell they're doing, it's like two monkeys at their keyboard trying to figure out how to code. At least it can feel that way. But I think the biggest sin when it comes to Abyssal Drain is that it's such a cool ability that you press so infrequently, as I've said before, but because that you press it so rarely, it's kind of boring. Like, the HP gain you get from it is cool, but it's also really temporary, because you're likely to use it a lot in big trash packs, which will also chunk away at your HP. So it's like a little bit of breathing room, but you're way more reliant on your regular mitigation, which again is fine. Like I said, you can do the content with Dark Knight, but again, does doing the content feel good. And I like Dark Knight, I really do. And the glamour is undefeated. That level 99 set does things to me that I'm going to dream about later. Oh, like that set though. Ooh. Oh, it's pretty. Look, I absolutely have a type when it comes to the aesthetics in Final Fantasy XIV, Dark Knight being at the extreme top of the list. So I'm going to play the thing, don't get me wrong. And the reason I'm yapping so much about Abyssal Drain is because, again, one of the main issues when it comes to Dark Knight, and that is, it doesn't have as much flavor as it used to, and kind of feels like a hodgepodge of ideas from the other tanks, namely Warrior, just done in a bit of a more scuffed way. And I haven't even played much Warrior. Like, I haven't even gotten the thing to level 91 yet, and I can still, like, attest to this. Because this has also been a critique about Warrior and Dark Knight since, I want to say Shadowbringers, or was it Endwalk? I think it was Shadowbringers. And with its self-sustained being kind of, making Abyssal Drain way more frequent, and I think disassociating it from Carve and Spit, because I think pairing those two up is stupid. Make Abyssal Drain its own cooldown, give it a way shorter cooldown, and maybe up the HP regen a little bit, and then, like, there you go. I would be satisfied with that. Now, there is one thing I do want to point out when it comes to Dark Knight about the changes with Dawntrail that I do really like, because Living Shadow, like, yeah, it's still really basic, right? But when they introduced Living Shadow, my biggest complaint about it was that it was such a cool concept that was so fire and forget, to where you would just pop it and then you would ignore it, because there was no real mechanical feedback you got by pressing Living Shadow. It was just a bunch of damage that you had no real agency over. But with the level 100 ability, Disesteem, which I believe is the name of the ability, it's an ability I can at least press because the guy is out. Is it really basic? Yes, again, it's just a bunch of damage, but at least there's a level of agency there, and I think this is the direction to take Living Shadow into the future. Let me manipulate this little jabroni around. Heck, maybe let Living Shadow augment my abilities that I have to do a little bit extra. Like, how cool would it be, right? If when you pressed Living Shadow, throughout its duration, Abyssal Drain, like, went back to being able to be spammed. Like, how cool would that be, right? Would it be perfectly balanced? Hell no. Would it be cool, though? Yes. At least to me. But again, while Disesteem is really basic, it's at least nice to be able to have some feeling that Living Shadow matters after I press the button. It's a glorified combo, sure, but at least it's something, and I can appreciate that. It's a design direction that I would like to see maybe not fully doubled down in the future, but explored more, absolutely. I know quite a few people have quite a few complaints when it comes to Dark Knight, and I share quite a few of those sentiments, as I've talked about in this video, but I do want to just reiterate the point. I still think it's fun. It's really spammy at times, right? But I like that. Like, the animations are just so cool on the thing, and you feel like a badass when you do it. Having those new animations in the Delirium window makes it feel so much better. And the names are awesome. Like Impalement. Yeah, yes, all of this. Yes, more. Spoon feed me this more. And I wouldn't say that Dark Knight needs a complete overhaul or rework. I just think a few small changes can go a long way. I think completely retooling Abyssal Drain is one of the biggest steps they can go. Doing something with Blackest Night to where I'm enjoying pressing the button. I'm not just, you know, let's go gambling. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. And maybe in the future when it comes to 8.0, we'll do a little bit more with Living Shadow, and like, I'd be fine with that. Maybe the pacing of the job overall needs a little bit of a fine tune, because it can go from being really spammy and quick to really goddamn slow, like quickly, right? Like, maybe even that out a little bit when it comes to the MP generation and give us a bit more of that, because like legit, you just like increase MP generation across the board when it comes to Dark Knight, and that would solve that issue. And like, there you go. That would make Dark Knight way more enjoyable for me without a need for a rework. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below though. Again, I don't want this to be necessarily a discussion on balance. I want Dark Knight to be fun, and I want the buttons I press to be really fun and enjoyable to press. And I think that's the number one thing that Square Enix should be on the lookout for when it comes to any potential job changes down the line. Balance is important, don't get me wrong. 100% it is. It's an MMORPG. You need to have balance to some degree, but you need the jobs to be be fun, and you need the buttons you press to be enjoyable, because you can do a lot of the content in this game through the combat, so the combat has to be fun. And I think it is, but just Dark Knight in particular, at least when I'm looking at all the tanks, is the one most in need of some changes. So with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Let me know what you all think. Stay safe, have a great day, leave a comment down below, leave a like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!